Okay, so here we are at week 13, and we're going to take a look at the NFC Playoff picture. Currently, you have Dallas as the number 1 seed, Seattle following right behind the number 2 seed. You have other division winners. Right now, you have Detroit on top of their division, and you also have Atlanta in the NFC South. The 2 wild cards, as it is right now, would be the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So looking at the playoff picture, who do you think are some of those fringe teams that might challenge and sneak into the wild cards or even take one of these divisions?
Division-wise, I mean, you look at you always have to think of Green Bay. I mean, they've not given us anything worth talking about as far as they're so inconsistent. That defense, they're plagued with injuries. But, man, it's just ingrained in your mind that they're a team that always makes the playoffs. They always do it. I don't believe they will, but that's the kind of team that they go on a streak. Detroit collapses. That's very possible.
Yeah, they'd have to almost all but win out at this point. And with the quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, it's hard to count a team like that out. But I'm going to have to say no on the Green Bay Packers as well as far as making the playoffs this year. And it's only because Matt Stafford is playing better than Aaron Rodgers. He's playing on a level that Aaron Rodgers was playing 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, when you see it fourth quarter comeback after fourth quarter comeback without having that number 1 receiver in Megatron, and he's spreading the ball around, and the offense is even harder to predict and stop. So right now, I look at Detroit as being in the driver's seat for the NFC North.
You know what's interesting with Detroit is, is that a lot of people, and the belief is a lot of teams are 8-8, and because of some bad luck here and there, they get to 10-6 or 6-10. And Detroit last year was a team that, a couple things went the wrong way. They lost a lot.
Yeah.
The same things bounced the right way. They're winning this division. Now, the collapse in Minnesota, Green Bay being dysfunctional, and the Bears just being the Bears. I mean, they've taken advantage of it. But I agree. That's a team that, I feel like Matt Stafford feels free. He doesn't have to sit there and say, oh, there's triple coverage, but he's Calvin Johnson.
Right.
He can manipulate the ball. He's always been a good quarterback, but I think he's finding where he is, where he's supposed to go. I don't think Green Bay takes it. I think Detroit holds on. Green Bay is going to make a run for it, but I think ultimately Detroit holds on. They hold on to their. And, I feel like, other than maybe Washington, I feel like this is kind of set in stone.
Really?
At
this point?
Yeah, because I'm looking at okay, let's look at the West.
Okay.
Arizona, I feel, is done.
Arizona's. I don't give Arizona much of a chance.
San Francisco and the Rams are
they're already eliminated.
Yeah, they've been mathematically eliminated. So I don't think you get anything there. From the North, Chicago, I don't think
they're eliminated.
They're eliminated. Minnesota, they're
just headed in the wrong direction.
And then you just have the East. I mean, it's the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Redskins. And then in the South is Tampa and Atlanta. Now that may switch if Tampa finds a way to.
That's what I think might happen.
Out, I think Tampa still has to play. They play New Orleans twice, and they play Dallas, and they play Carolina to finish off the season.
Yeah.
And I don't know Atlanta's schedule off the top of my head, but if they go 3-1, they have a chance to take the South to host the playoff game. But as far as the teams, unless something crazy happens, I think these are the 6 teams that are probably going to be in the playoffs.
So looking at that, who do you think could possibly make some noise in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, let's just put Dallas to the side because they're almost in their own galaxy right now, and they just all roads lead to. If you want to go
definitely the road to the Super Bowl isn't through Arlington, Texas, right now.
Yes, I'll never count out Eli Manning because I've seen that man defeat an undefeated New England team, which I thought was amazing at the time.
Yeah,
but this guy throws picks like candy. It's not a good time to say that because he just lost to the Steelers through bad picks, bad interceptions.
Some of those balls were up for grabs.
Yeah,
they're up for grabs. They're not mistakes or the wrong read or this guy jumped out of nowhere.
Did he think he got drafted by the Steelers?
I think so.
Did he take a hit and oh, man, I was drafted by the Steelers, right? That guy looks open.
It looked like it. Some of those throws. The only thing about New York, I like New York. I think they're dangerous too. I wouldn't feel very comfortable as a Cowboys fan having to play New York, division rival. But one major doubt that I have about their team and their chances in the playoff is they don't do anything super well. They're just pretty good at everything. When you look at their defensive line, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You look at their secondary, it's pretty good. You look at their quarterback play, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You look all across that team, it's just pretty good. But what is there like, hey, we have to shut this part of that team down because they can beat us with that game. I don't see that.
That's true. I think their biggest weapon, I always feel that when your biggest weapon is your giant receiver, or not giant receiver, your big-time receiver,
Yeah.
I always feel like that's a bad place to start. And you've proven you could get in his head.
Right.
If
they
they go
take him
up
out of
against,
games.
you go up against a Seattle and you're Odell Beckham Jr. and there's, Cam Chancellor, there's Sherman talking neck to you, can you stay in the game? And if that's their star player and he can't stay in the game, plus they don't run the ball that well at all, actually.
No.
It's Eli. It's one of those things where I've seen it, so I'd be mildly shocked, but not like, oh my God, because it's Eli. I've seen him do it before. Any teams you think can make some noise?
I look at Tampa Bay, and I think it's very possible that they do take the division over Atlanta because Atlanta's lost 2 of the last 3. I mean, heartbreaker to Kansas City this weekend.
Yeah.
And when I look at them, it's the same old problem with Matt Ryan. He looks good early on in the season, and he crumbles. With the exception of that one year that they made it to the NFC Championship game, it's the same old story. And I think it's just interesting because you see a young quarterback like Jameis Winston, and he's built, some camaraderie with the rest of the offense, and you can tell they play for one another.
Yeah.
And the only thing is you look at Tampa Bay's schedule, and they do have Dallas, and they're at Dallas, and if Dallas still has something to play for, I think that's going to be their biggest obstacle. But if they get in, I think they can make some noise.
Well, I wanted to talk about that game because that could be a potential preview to a playoff matchup. And just speaking really quickly on that game is, it's exciting to see because you watched what happened with Dallas and Minnesota, and you saw that Minnesota's defense can hold Dallas at bay for a little bit, which is something, but they had no offense. What made, Minnesota great was those linebackers are so fast. They can shoot the gaps, they can find a way in and at least disrupt Zeke a little bit, then try to get the gang tackle.
Right.
And you see Tampa Bay, and they're built like a smaller version of that. You have McCoy, you have Spence, who are fast, get off the line, and you have these linebackers in Quan Alexander and Levante David, who can maybe get inside and disrupt Zeke so that he doesn't get a head start 3 yards in. And then you think that Tampa has an offense that's far better than anything Minnesota can put on the field. So that game's going to be very exciting in 2 weeks. They flexed it out to Sunday night.
They did.
I mean, that may be a preview of a divisional game, and Dallas gets the bye.
It could be, definitely. I definitely have to give the nod to Dallas. They're going to be playing at home. And I think Dallas on offense, everybody's saying Minnesota showed you the formula on how to beat Dallas. But not everybody has the personnel to make that formula effective. And I feel like the Minnesota Vikings had the personnel to make that formula effective. Now, comparable is Tampa Bay's defense, but they're still not on that level collectively like Minnesota is.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer is an awesome defensive head coach. He's a former Cowboys defensive coordinator under Bill Parcells and Dave Campbell. And believe it or not, for all Dave Campbell's woes, he's good on defense. He's just no head coach. So I don't believe they're going to stop them, but you're right. If they can get some explosive plays on offense and keep them in the game, they can make it a contest.
Yeah.
But I don't see them. In fact, I'd be more scared to play a team like the Washington Redskins because they're an explosive offense. They show up every week and score points. Now, the defense and, maybe sometimes they make those crucial mistakes at the end, but they always put points up.
Yeah, and they've played them they've played him twice already, and he's been able to move the ball, Kirk Cousins. But I just look at Washington, even if they get in, they can't stop Dallas, and what's scary is that Dallas knows that. So Dallas could sit there and say, oh, you're up 10, okay, down the field, here's 7, we hold you another field goal, down the field, touchdown, we're up by 1, and then the pressure goes back on Kirk Cousins. I agree, he can move the ball. I mean, they made him look like Montana the last game.
They did.
And that's scary. I agree. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but you never know. There's still, like you said, four games left. How do you feel about Atlanta?
Atlanta also has a tough, high-flying offense that I'm scared of because, again, they can score the points. They can put 30 up on you just like Dallas can put 30 up in any game. The only difference with Atlanta that I see is that they're inconsistent in the running game sometimes, and on defense, Like I said, they lost a heartbreaker to the Chiefs this weekend. And, when you can get a defensive stop, then their whole game plan goes to crap.
Yeah.
Because they're used to playing ahead and running the score up on you. And when they get you down, they can keep you down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you make a couple of plays on defense like Dallas has, or can keep you out of the red zone, like Dallas can keep a lot of teams out of the, not keep them out of the red zone, but keep them from scoring a touchdown in the red zone, then I think that's a winning formula for Dallas again. I'm more afraid of Washington than any team, and that includes Seattle.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because everyone says that the NFC Championship is already signed, sealed, and delivered. It will be the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Dallas to play the Dallas Cowboys. So how do you feel about that matchup? I know we've talked a little bit about it, and you're shockingly not that worried about it.
I'm not worried at all about Seattle. I don't think Seattle's offense is anywhere near consistent enough to put the points up with Dallas. I see them in the way I see similar to Minnesota, except I'd honestly be more afraid to play Minnesota in a playoff game than the Seahawks. And the reason for this is that they have the personnel on defense that matches up with the Cowboys team. Speed from the linebackers, speed off the edges and the defensive line. As a rushing team, Seattle isn't a speed rushing team. They're a power rushing team.
Yeah.
And that bodes well for offensive line. Our offensive line has beat them in every contest in these last few years. They won the game in 2015 when we had Matt Castle and we had Darren McFadden, but we still ran the ball down their throats. We still took advantage of that defensive line. They didn't get a lot of pressure on Castle. It doesn't matter because he can't make a throw anyway. But when you have Dak Prescott being protected and you have them running for Ezekiel Elliott, they can nullify that particular defensive line where they're unable to nullify a defensive line like Minnesota or even the New York Giants because it matches up better. I don't believe the Seattle Seahawks can match up with the Cowboys.
I think they can, and the reason I do is I think on the offensive side, you can move. There's no big secret when I say this. This isn't dissing Dallas. You can move the ball from 20 to 20 on Dallas. You can get into the red zone on the Dallas defense,
Right.
But where they've made their bones and where they've won is because they've held guys like Kirk Cousins at the beginning of the game on Thanksgiving. They held him to 3 field goals. They kept him out of the end zone. That changes the complexity of the game. They held Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers went down the field with ease, but then once he got to the 15 or the 20, everything stalled out for them. I think Russell Wilson has the ability to turn those field goals into touchdowns because there's only 2 ways to beat Dallas. You're either going to go with the thought process, and I think you're of the mindset, we have to score on them. We have to score because we can't stop them. So we got to score and pray for a Dak interception or a sack or a change in possession or a turnover, whereas Seattle says, we're going to line up and stop you, and we're going to play with our quarterback who can make plays.
Right, and the problem with your scenario is I don't believe that's Seattle's defense is their strength. We all agree on that, right?
Yes.
You ask anybody out there, ESPN, NFL Network, they'll all agree Seattle's defense is the strength of that team. And that's where I believe we match up well against their defense. Who's going to stop Dez Bryant? I mean, you can slow him down, but you're not going to shut him out.
Yeah.
And that secondary prides themselves on holding the opponents down. That pass rush, they pride themselves on getting to the quarterback. But they have not been able to do that. And the reason why is because the Cowboys have, like you've said yourself, maybe the best offensive line in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
That line is not going to cause too many problems for this Cowboys offense. And that's why I believe, Dallas is not a lock, but they're the prohibitive favorites to make it to the Super Bowl.